Welcome back. We again have Alberto Rey with us. This is part 2 of our interview with him. The first one, we focused on his art show that was currently on display at the Castellani Art Museum at Niagara University. The second one, we're featuring some additional discussions we had about art and how he's found a way to tie both that art with his love for fishing, biology, and protecting water for everyone. Did you come up with there's the opening overview on the Castellani website. It is crucial to inform the public on the importance of our region and America's cultural and natural heritage and the challenges that the Niagara River faces.
Yes.
And that was sentiment just from what you were doing with the research, or was that something you had beforehand?
No, it was a project that was done, and looking back, we wanted to create a statement, and I wanted to articulate some information, and so that's what I came up with. I also created a website that shows the paintings, high resolution images of the paintings, and then the narrative descriptions that are in the exhibition, so that if you can't see it, or if you want to see it again, if you go to my website, which is albertorey.com, under art projects, you'll see description, this project, and then a link to that website. And that's something I've started to do with just about every project I do. I create a website. It's a simple website, but it creates a kind of an archive of the research and the images, so that if somebody is curious and wants to know more about these past projects, they can look at it.
Mm-hmm. Is it how do you? I mean, obviously you like that. Was that tough at first though, because you probably want people to experience the art? I mean, these are giant paintings you've done, and it's an exhibit in this gallery. Was it tough at first, or was it no brainer to you that I want to put this out there so anyone can see?
Yeah. I think the reality is that if you look at the big picture, the number of people who actually go to an exhibition is relatively small compared to the potential for more people to see it. So if you pick a website, anybody in the country or the world can see it, and they can see it not only this year but 10 years from now. And the other possibility is that it provides an opportunity for students, classes, teachers to use that information in their classes as a way of getting that information across. That you're creating an opportunity that outlives the exhibition.
Seems like that goes at hand with what you've done over the years, because you've created like the youth thing for fly fishing, and
Correct.
Like the bioregionalism, trying to get people connected back to it. It just seems like another way to be like, if you can't make it, at least look at it and get to know it.
Yeah. So I've been running a youth fly fishing program for about 24 years, and we meet every Tuesday at 7:00 at the college, and it's fly tying, and then periodically we go fishing. We're actually going to go fishing tonight.
That's at Fredonia, correct?
Correct, SUNY Fredonia. And for me, it was kind of like, all right, I'm doing all this research, I'm doing these paintings, but I should do more in the community. And so before I actually even started this series, Biological Regionalism, I started this youth fly fishing program. And soon afterwards, a couple years after that, I started guiding. So it's another way of introducing people to the environment. And then after that, a few years after that, we started reintroducing brook trout into Canada Way Creek, which runs behind my house. And brook trout were the only native trout species in the Northeast. And a lot of them became kind of eradicated, or just died off because of the pollution in the rivers. So now that a lot of the rivers are in better shape, I'm trying to do my part with the kids to reintroduce brook trout into Canada Way Creek. And then shortly after that, we started doing creek cleanups. So we've been doing creek cleanups for about 13 years. We stopped at COVID, and I'm looking at getting it back on again. We were doing it every year, so we're hoping to get back to that again.
Mm-hmm. That seems like a nice circle, I guess, of you're creating this art to show people, but then at the same time you're out there. I know you have the fly fishing and just for recreational aspect, but then you've turned that into a community aspect. To better it.
Yeah, it's a wide net, more or less. It seems like a natural progression. It seems like if you're going to do work about the environment, you should do something about making it better. The one thing that I've found over the years, over the last few decades, that social media can be wonderful at getting the information across, but it can also give people a false perception that they're making a difference. And what I mean by that is, somebody posts something and you put a like on it, and you think, all right, yeah, I've done something to help in people or the environment. You're really not doing anything. You're showing your opinion, your expression, your opinion, which is great, but I think it's important to get out there and do something or support organizations to do that. Just be more proactive.
Is that something maybe the bigger hope for you when people see the shows or talk to you, like to just get out there? Is that a constant message?
Yeah, I think it's planting a seed for me. That's what I kind of see it as. That if they look at the work and they read the text, that they can start mulling it over. What can I do? If they see something in the future, like a public meeting or something that they can voice their opinion, or if there's a creek cleanup somewhere, or something, it gives them the consideration to be proactive, to help wherever they can when they have the opportunity. I'm not expecting huge change, but just, again, planting the seed. And it might not happen for years, it might happen right away, but it's, again, just planting a seed.
Mm-hmm. The Niagara River, that's something that's the main focus for this one at the Castellani, kind of talking about the challenges and that it faces. Are there things, there's the sewage, the pollution. Does it seem like things are getting better?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think things were pretty bad in the 70s and 80s, and then I think slowly it's gotten better, but there's still a lot that can be done. There's no easy answers. Again, when things are this polluted and you have so many leaking areas, and it's just hard to create regulations to monitor. And there's just takes a lot of money. There's still, like I said, every time there's a major water event, whether it's rain, snow melting, a lot of the water treatment plants throughout the Buffalo, Niagara, and Canadian cities that border the river, water treatment plants can't accept all the water, so it flows into the river with sewage and other toxins. And that's something that just needs to be looked at.
How's it? I guess, this is our backyard, Niagara River, but you've seen that elsewhere too. Is it surprising? You've been all over the world and you've seen that. Is it surprising that even here still, or is it just kind of like, that's just, I know we talked about it earlier a bit, but.
Yeah, it's, there's some, like the Danube in Europe flows through a lot of countries. Which means a lot of complications, a lot of political and government policies that change. And that was extremely polluted. And now it's actually getting salmon moving back into the river. So it can be done. There's still a lot of issues with that river. And again, the Niagara River has been cleaned up in relationship to what it was before, but it still has a lot more can be done.
Part of that opening overview that you'd come up with, talking about America's cultural and natural heritage, and you'd mentioned working with the Tuscarora Native Americans. Was it difficult to talk to this other group and feel like you're going to have to then explain that?
Yeah, I think you want to be respectful.
Right.
I think there's two. My main concern is, one, you want to be respectful, and two, you want to be accurate in the information. So anything that we put up with the timeline or anything else, I ran it through the Tuscarora to make sure that I was sensitive to their perception, culture, and facts, and then we made the changes as was appropriate. They were very generous with their time. I think we had one meeting when we were talking about spearfishing that, there was 3 or 4 other people at the meeting, and we spoke for 4 hours just talking about it. And
I'm sure you had an easy connection with the fishing background too.
Yeah, but they were, they didn't know me. I think one of them knew me from some of my past work, but they were just generous, and and I thought that was a very, it was kind of respectful. I wanted to make sure that I told that story correctly. And they seemed, for the people who I sent the images, I did send it to them, and they really enjoyed it. And I have reached out to them to donate that painting to the reservation, so they are interested in it. So we're kind of finalizing that. Yeah, it's it's like with any of the paintings, I want to make sure that I'm accurate in what I'm saying with the painting and with the narratives.
Mm-hmm. Which painting is the one you're looking to donate on that series?
The Tuscarora spearfishing,
Okay.
sturgeon spearfishing painting. It's the last painting when you come in. If you're going from left to right, it'll be the.
I mean, the art came before fishing, it seemed, because fishing is a big part of your passion, it seems.
Right. Yeah, I was. I always kind of drew and painted in high school, but I never. I grew up in a small coal mining town in Pennsylvania, and then I'd spend my summers in Miami with my family. So it was a pretty strange bicultural life. But I was young. I thought that's just normal. But growing up in a small coal mining town in a family of refugees, the idea of being an artist just didn't seem realistic. I wanted to. We really didn't come from a lot of money. When we left Cuba, we literally left with a suitcase, and that was it. So we had to start over, and so there was nothing romantic about being poor. So I wanted to have a life, a career where I could raise a family and not have financial concerns. So I decided not to do art and went into science and biology. I always liked biology and oceanography. So my first year in college at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, I did take an art class. I think it might have been the second semester. And just out of curiosity, I asked the professor, I'm in science, but if you think I should continue with art, I'll take more classes. And he said, no, you should stay with it. So if he would have said, stay with science, I would have stayed with it. But
we'd be having a different conversation, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he said, no, stay with it. And he actually asked me to be his teaching assistant the following year. So that kind of kept me in the arts. And then I just switched from biology to art, and I kind of stayed with it ever since. Kind of embracing everything that I found interesting. Before, I used to have this feeling that you have to make choices. If you're going to do art, you have to do art. You can't combine it with other things. And then over time, I realized that no, that was wrong. You can do it all, and you can link it all together to make the work even more interesting. It took me a long time to figure that out. I should have realized it sooner.
But then you went back, not went back, but there's the fishing side of it that I guess came forward. The fly fishing, was that?
Yeah, the fly fishing for me is also part of that science, part of that biology. The thing about fly fishing is you have to, study a lot of entomology. And for me, I probably don't have to do that, but for me, I wanted to study the entomology and the migration of fish and the physiology of the fish and the history of the local fisheries. And so I found that all very compelling. And so it just naturally became addicted to it. I read everything I could possibly get my hands on fly fishing in this area. And then, so I had two addictions, more or less, art and fly fishing. And then the two kind of combined. So now I write magazines for fly fishing magazines, and I do art reviews for Buffalo Spree. And, it's kind of a nice life. I'm fortunate that I've lived as long as I have. I'm kind of doing pretty much everything I want to do.
Nice. Do you get one side where maybe you're painting and you're like, I want to get out on a stream? Or
Yeah.
are you out fishing? You're like, I got to get back and paint something.
Both.
Yeah.
Both. Yeah. You can't win. So since my studio overlooks the creek, Canterway Creek, I'll be working in the studio and I'll see, man, water looks great. It's perfect conditions. I should get out there. But you got to do these paintings for an exhibition or project. So you I got to stay here. And then sometimes you're in the creek and you're fishing and you're kind of like, wow, I work on that painting. I should go back.
Is there anything with the Niagara show at the Castellani, anything else you want to add or note?
I just, wanted to thank the people there, Mary Helen, Michael Beam, and the other staff members who have been very supportive, helpful. I've over time have had several Zoom calls with folks at Waterkeepers. I've worked on another project with them. They've always been very helpful, very knowledgeable. It's always a pleasure working with them. And again, that's one of the organizations that do a lot with waters and bodies of water in the area that I would recommend supporting. And they seem to be getting more and more notoriety for their work and doing more and more work in the area. So I think that's commendable.
And with these art shows, this is one great
Oh, yeah. It's
let people know, like, hey, know about your water. Get out there and experience or find out the problems and fix it.
Exactly. I think it's important to be, to be out. There's a lot of positive health benefits of being outside, and I think I encourage that. But along with that, it's important to kind of nurture and protect the environment that's around you.
Do you feel like people are getting back towards the waterway? I've heard some other talks you've done where, like, that concern of people maybe more urbanized, they're in their cars and stuff. Do you feel like
I think it's, it's interesting. I think there was a time in American society where a majority of the people lived in agricultural environments. They were farmers or they worked outside. And then over time, there's a migration to the cities. So now most of the population in the United States are centered around cities and towns and that type of thing. So the reality is now with, our lifestyle is that, we live in a house, we go in a car, then we go to an office, and then we come back from the office in the car back to the home. And so we spend very little or a very small percentage of our everyday experiences outside. We lose connection to our environment. And by losing connection to our environment, we're really unaware of what's happened to that environment. These exhibitions are a way of reconnecting people to their environment, encouraging them to go outside. And also by going outside, you start to become stewards of this environment. And by being stewards, you start to think more about it, you start to study it, you start to realize what are the challenges that it faces, and then you try to find ways to make that environment better and to bring it back more to its natural state. All of that starts by just being outside more.
Well, Alberto, thank you very much. It has been a pleasure chatting with you today.
Well, thank you. Again, I appreciate you taking the time to spend with me and asking me about my work. I'm happy to talk about it.
And if people want, they can find it. Your website is
albertorey.com, and Ray is R-E-Y.
Definitely go check that out. And
if anybody has any questions, feel free to email me or call me.
Perfect. And the Castellani goes until February 25th?
Correct.
So people should make their way up to the show. There's still plenty of time.
Thank you very much.
And thank you all for listening. Before you go, I just want to remind everyone, contributions from individuals are what make this work possible, what Waterkeeper is able to do on a day-to-day basis. For every dollar raised, Waterkeeper leverages it tenfold through securing grants and other funding to help deliver over 60 projects and programs each year. Donor dollars support our efforts to research and monitor our waterways, design projects, advocate for good policies, and even construct habitat and access improvements. These efforts in turn create a significant economic and environmental benefit for our community. In some cases, like our Buffalo River restoration, it has been shown to create a 40-to-1 return. So whether you can give $5 or $5,000 or more, please know your dollars stay local, will be multiplied, and will help make change in our waters and community. Many thanks again to Buffalo-based band Snowbelt for their intro and outro music in this episode. You can find their music and latest album, Norris Avenue, on all streaming services. Check them out. And thank you again for listening. Be well and do good.